Hello, good evening everyone. Hello po, good evening. Thank you po for attending our first session for licensure examination review. So, hello po mga future RCH. Pa-heart react naman dyan, pa-like or
Hello.
hello, yes po. Hello po Ma'am Charmaine and Mayan, Ma'am Laika. Thank you po. So, we are very blessed na nandito kayo ngayon, and thank you for letting us cater to you with this free review, and hopefully po makapag-register din tayo sa Upstep Review Center. So we will registration is ongoing. The self-paced review for CHLE will start this May. So watch out for our further announcements. And this night, we're so privileged to have one of our, top care lecturers. And we have RCH Cesar Quizon Jr. So, introduce ko lang po siya sa inyong lahat. So, he graduated cum laude, BS Agricultural Chemistry at UPLB. Um, doing his masterals right now at UPLB. Grabe. And currently instructor 7 at UPLB Institute of Chemistry from 2019 until 2024. And I'll give you now our lecturer for tonight, Sir Cesar Quizon Jr. Take it away, sir.
Ayan, good evening po. Mhm. Ayan. Hopefully nakikita po yung screen before we start, just to make sure. Okay, so again, good evening po. Thank you for attending our free review for Chemist Licensure exam for this year, ang Chem Boards na inaabangan natin. So I will be the lecturer for biochemistry. So for tonight, ang i-cover ko lang ay yung kaya for this given time ay sa proteins. So we are going to tackle the structure, function, and structure-function relationship, and also some related laboratory techniques na kadalasang may-encounter nyo rin sa chem boards. Okay, so without further ado, let's start. So proteins, so they are known to be the life's most versatile molecules. So most versatile kasi napakadaming functions na kayang i-perform ng proteins. So halos lahat ng biochemical pathways na may encounter ninyo sa biochem or na-encounter nyo na before in your biochemistry, palaging merong proteins na involved. Although hindi halata, pero yung kadalasan kasi nakikita nyo lang mga structures ng metabolites. Pero yung enzymes na involved palagi sa mga pathways na yon, they are proteins. So it is very important that you understand the different principles, the structures of the amino acids, the different interactions that they can carry out when they are part of a protein structure. Ayan. So, starting from a amino acid sequence, ano yung nagiging role or function niya sa isang given reaction or kung anumang biochemical process yun. Okay? So, to start with, so for the proteins, so this word protein is coined by the Swedish chemist in 1838, so Jöns Jacob Berzelius. So the etymology of the word protein is proteos, which is a Greek word meaning primary or first quality. So kumbaga parang noon pa man, high-end na yung pagkakatingin nila sa protein, kaya ganun yung regard nila back then. Okay? And then in understanding proteins, let me just give you a few terminologies just to distinguish this. Just to review, na kapag sinabing amino acid, they are the known building blocks of the proteins. And then peptides, pag sinabi naman peptides, yan yung chain of a few amino acids that may be 2 to 20. So may number or certain certain na bilang ng amino acids para masabing meron kang peptide. So yung amino acids na yon dapat ay linked by what you call the peptide bond. Okay? Para masabing peptide yon. A higher level na kino-consider kapag meron kang amino acids na dugtong-dugtong, tapos paano kapag mas marami pa sa 20? So you have what you call yung polypeptides na at yung proteins. So kapag meron ka daw, or sinasabi dito, molecules referred to as polypeptides generally have molecular weights below 10,000 daltons. So daltons to, no? Di ko lang nalagay yung units. And those called proteins have higher molecular weights. So what is being said here is that if you have a molecule composed of amino acids, and these amino acids are linked by peptide bonds, and when you determine the total or the molecular weight of that molecule to be below 10,000, so pag sinabi 10,000 daltons, it is equivalent to 10,000 grams per mole. Ganun lang din yun. So mas gamit lang kapag sa biochemistry yung unit na daltons when we are denoting the molecular weight. Okay? So pag less than 10,000, sinasabi na polypeptides pa lang daw yon at hindi pa siya nagko-qualify na proteins. So that is based on convention na rin yun. Okay? So I have here an example, the human insulin. So if you look at the structure of human insulin, ayan, nakikita nyo dyan sa screen yung kanyang amino acid sequence. Okay? And this molecule is composed of amino acids, as you can see, and it has a molecular weight of 5,808 daltons. Kumbaga, 5.8 kilodalton. Excuse me, kilodaltons. And if you count the number of amino acids, that will add up to 51. Okay? So since its molecular weight is less than 10,000, the human insulin qualifies as a polypeptide. Okay? And then, just additional information then, pag sinabing human insulin, baka kasi lumabas din sa boards. So insulin, this is a known hormone that regulates blood sugar by helping cells absorb glucose for energy and storage. Okay? So pagdating sa, pag nag-discuss na ng carbohydrate metabolism, may encounter ulit tong insulin. Okay? So that is an important regulatory point in regulating the absorption of glucose or taking up of glucose by the cells. Okay? So you can also see dyan sa ating screen na meron ding A-chain, yung A-chain yung green, at B-chain yung insulin na link, at tapos pagka pinagdugtong yung dalawang yun by disulfide linkages. So parang meron siyang certain level of structure na kino-conform that we are going to discuss later on. And on the right, this is just a 3D representation of the human insulin. So later, didiscuss din natin ano bang ibig sabihin kapag ganyan yung itsura ng representation. Okay. Another example, yung human serum albumin. Ano ba yung human serum albumin? So simply albumin. So in our blood, you have what you call this protein, HSA, or serum albumin. So this is part, or it is known to be the most abundant protein in the blood, comprising 58% of the plasma proteins. And yan, synthesized daw yan by hepatocytes or the liver cells. And it is known to function in maintaining the intravascular oncotic pressure. And it carries hormones, ions, and medication. So parang sa blood, dyan kumakapit yung mga iniinom nating gamot para ma-distribute sa ating katawan at para mag-take effect further. Okay? Another trivia here, yung albumin, so mas sikat kasi sa kanya, sa albumin ang hemoglobin. Kaya ang nagiging connotation ng iba kapag sinabing, pag tinanong, ano yung pinaka-abundant na protein sa blood? Nagkakalito na, nalilito na. Ang nasasabi ay hemoglobin instead of albumin. So it is actually albumin to be found to be more abundant than hemoglobin. Since karamihan or halos lahat ng composition ng blood natin ay plasma at nandun lang yung albumin. Okay? Going back to what we are talking about here, so the human serum albumin is a known protein. It qualifies as a protein due to its molecular weight, 66.5 to 67 kilodaltons approximately. And it has 585 amino acid residues. Okay? Yan. So, pinapakita rin dito yung tertiary structure ng albumin. Mamaya may encounter, babalikan din natin yan. Okay? So, that's the difference between polypeptide and protein. Yung qualifying factor ay yung molecular weight nila. Okay. So, hindi mawawala sa ating discussion, syempre, ang amino acids. So, bago tayo mag-start or makaintindi ng isang malaking biomolecule, so proteins are considered to be large biomolecules. Okay? Yung mga nakikita natin sa yung presence sa cells and kung saan pa man sila present, so they are known to be large biomolecules. So, to understand the structure, function, we have to know paano ba yung amino acids, ano bang meron sa kanila. So every amino acid contains a central carbon or alpha carbon bonded to, ano ba sinasabing alpha carbon in your organic chemistry? So hindi pa tayo nakapag-review ng organic, no? So kapag dumating kayo sa organic, you will encounter again the term alpha carbon. So amino acids, meron, kumbaga compose yan ng two functional groups. You have the amino group and the carboxyl group. In organic chemistry, when we name such compounds, we prioritize the most oxidized functional group to be the parent chain, or kumbaga kasama siya sa parent chain, yung carboxyl group kumbaga, or carboxylic acid. So, yung carboxyl group, yung carbon na kadugtong niya, it will be considered as the alpha carbon. Okay? Hence the term alpha carbon for that central carbon atom at which the different functional groups or groups are bonded around the structure of an amino acid. Hence, we can refer to this functional group as the alpha amino group, here, alpha carboxyl group, and yung side chain, it may differ from one amino acid. Okay? Because this is what makes each of the 20 amino acids unique. And it will give the different chemical properties for such amino acids. So an amino acid may be considered polar, non-polar, acidic, or basic. Okay? Ayan. So tingnan natin. Mamaya yung mga bawat structures niyan. Okay. It is important to know that the naturally occurring proteins contain amino acids that are in the L form. Okay? Ano ba yung L form na sinasabi? Sorry. Medyo na-advance tayo doon. So, the L form refers to a certain enantiomeric form or stereoisomeric form ng amino acid. And that is important also to be considered in biochemistry because certain processes will consider the specific stereochemistry of your molecules for it to conform to a certain function na gagampanan niya sa isang process. Okay? So it is important to know na yung amino acids ay naka-L form. So baka lumabas din yan sa board exam. Dapat alam niyo na L form halos lahat or lahat na kumbaga ng amino acids na nandun sa proteins. Okay? Ito naman yung D form. Ano bang pinagkaiba nilang dalawa? They are basically the mirror images of each other. Okay, so pag nilagyan nyo yan dito ng guhit and then you imagine this as the mirror image of the other one, you can see that each group or each atom will reflect na parang mirror or nakasalamin niyo si L-alanine. And take note again, this is the major form ng amino acid sa proteins. Okay? Paano nasasabing L form? So if you draw the structure of the amino acid in a flying wedge notation, so ito yung itsura ng flying wedge notation, wherein you use wedges, yung dark, yung black, naka-highlight na yung heavily colored ng black na bonds. Okay? Yung flying wedge yan, and then dash notation naman yung palikod. So kapag ganito, flying wedge notation, meron pa kayong Fisher projection. So medyo nare-review din kayo no, sa organic. Kaya maganda na talagang naiintindihan din yung foundations ng organic chemistry if you are going to study, if you want to understand deeply then yung biochemistry concepts natin. Okay? Ayan. And take note, nakalagay dito, except glycine. So tandaan na only glycine among the 20 standard amino acids will be considered achiral. Achiral. Yung chiral na word, tapos may letter A sa unahan, achiral. Pag sinabing achiral, it is a compound that does not exhibit enantiomerism. Or if you subject the substance to a plain polarized light, it will not tend, hindi niya i-rotate yung plane ng light na yon. Okay? So pagdating naman sa organic chemistry, mas maiintindihan niyo siguro yon. Or kung hindi na masyado ninyo naaalala ngayon. Okay? Kaya. So, another thing to take note, I have been, minamention ko na rin kanina pa, yung 20 standard amino acids. So, yung 20 standard amino acids, they are considered to be proteinogenic. Pag sinabing proteinogenic, so protein, word na protein plus ogenic. Okay? Mga ketogenic, ganun. Mga ganong term. Okay? Proteinogenic, ibig sabihin, yung 20 amino acids na yun, sila yung ginagamit to build up proteins and polypeptides. Okay. So, the amino acids that we have, the 20 amino acids, can be classified into different bases. Okay? First basis, nutritional requirement. So, you can have the essential amino acids and the non-essential amino acids. Essential, from the term itself, essential, kailangan ng katawan. So, kailangan sila na masupply sa diet natin. So, essential amino acids cannot be synthesized by the body, hence they are obtained through food or dietary supplements. Okay? So, walang kumbagang mechanism yung katawan natin para ma-produce sila naturally. We have to obtain them from the diet. So, here on the right, I have listed the 9 amino acids that are considered essential, completely essential. So, you have methionine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, phenylalanine, threonine, tryptophan, histidine, and valine. Okay? For arginine, it is considered to be conditionally essential. Bakit kaya? Kung naalala ninyo sa biochemistry. It is not considered completely essential. It is not considered completely non-essential. Para siya sabi, conditionally essential. Because there are certain conditions to be met bago siya makonsider na essential. Kailan ba nagiging essential ang amino acid? Kapag hindi kayang isynthesize or isupply ng katawan. So, for example, in infants, sa mga babies, okay? Infants cannot synthesize enough arginine on their own. Although merong kaya nila, pero not enough for their dietary requirement. So that is due to the lack of a certain enzyme that is called the arginase that is required to synthesize or carry out the biosynthesis of arginine in the body. Okay? So dahil doon, nagiging essential kumbaga sa babies ang arginine. Kaya considered conditionally essential siya. Okay? And then, another case is kapag there is the condition of physiological stress. Okay? Such as recovery from burns, surgery, or severe illness kapag malala yung lagay ng katawan ng tao. Okay? So, if you are, kapag may ganong case, the patient must be supplied with arginine or kapag ibibigyan sila ng arginine in that case, dapat, or part ng kanilang diet, dapat yon. Another is organ dysfunction. Kapag may problema sa kidneys, sa small intestine, it can reduce the production of endogenous. So we have the term endogenous. Pag sinabing endogenous, naturally occurring sa katawan or sa cell, hindi siya sinusupply ng through diet. Okay? So yun nga, yung case ng arginine dapat. Yeah. So dito sa gilid, nilista ko na rin yung one-letter code ng amino acids, kung natatandaan nyo pa, no? So, dapat sa ulo nyo yun, no? Bukod sa structure ng amino acid, meron siyang, mamaya papakita ko. Dito na tayo sa next slide. Sige. Makapala, ito muna. Bakit pala may pusa dito sa gilid na may milk? Kasi ito yung mnemonics na ginagamit ko, no? Mnemonics ko to kapag sisolo ko yung yung essential amino acids. Milk for the win HV. Tapos parang milk for the win have verb. Minsan nilalagdag ko yung R. Just sa dulo ko na lang siya nilalagay kasi conditionally essential siya. Katulad nga sa mga nabanggit ko na cases kanina. So, milk for the win have verb. Parang yan. Kayo, pwede rin kayo maka-devise ang inyong sariling mnemonics kung saan kayo komportable, no? Yeah. That is one technique din kapag nag-aaral ng biochemistry, kapag hirap kayong tandaan. Gumawa kayo ng mnemonics ninyo. Okay. So, since we have been talking about amino acids, again, importante na sa ulo ninyo yung structure ng bawat isa, lalo na yung R group. Yung R group ay yung mga naka-highlight sa mga structure na nandyan. Okay? Yan yung dapat sa ulo nyo. Kasi, halimbawa, yung backbone niya or yung common structural motif ng proteins ay yung alpha carbon, of course, the alpha carbon, and then you have the alpha carboxyl group or the carboxyl group itself, and the alpha amino group. So, ang tatandaan na lang lagi ay ano yung itsura ng mga side chains sa bawat amino acid. Okay? Kaya, so, in this slide, I have also emphasized that the amino acids will be classified also based on the R group, not only based on nutritional requirements. So, you have the non-polar, polar, okay, aliphatic R groups, those polar uncharged R groups, the aromatic R groups, positively charged R groups, and negatively charged R groups. So ito, hindi naman ito yung absolute na classification niya. Since based on R group, yung positively charged R groups, if you look here, ano yung common sa kanila? So you have here lysine, arginine, histidine, if you remember sa inyong biochemistry. Common sa kanila, sila yung known na basic amino acids. So the basic amino acids can also have positively charged R groups depending on the nature of the, let's say, a solution wherein they are present. For example, at physiological pH, neutral pH, they can exist in their positively charged R forms. Kaya we consider the basic amino acids to have positively charged R groups. Okay? And then the negatively charged R groups, saan yun? Ito, itong dalawa. Ano naman yung common sa kanila? You have the aspartate, or sometimes we refer to it as the aspartic acid if we are considering the side chain, the carboxyl group at the side chain to be protonated aspartic acid. Pero kung negatively charged, we can refer to it as aspartate, as the conjugate base ng aspartic acid. And then you have the glutamic acid or the glutamate. They are negatively charged at physiological pH. Kaya kinoconsider na ganyan. Okay? Ano pa? Yung sa aliphatic R groups, so common natin, of course, glycine, non-polar yan. And then, alanine, methyl lang. So yung hydrogen sa glycine, palitan mo na methyl group, meron ka ng alanine. Okay? Next na tingnan natin, wag muna itong proline, medyo complicated. Sa valine, instead na methyl group, meron ka ng isopropyl group, pa-letter V. O isang palatandaan din sa pagtanda ng structure ng valine. You have the parang V-shape, pa-letter V na baliktad yan. Okay? Or kung babaliktarin niyo yung structure na yan, maging letter V yan, kaya valine. Leucine, okay? Sa dulo, or pa-letter Y yan, isoleucine, yung parang pa-letter, kung tutingnan nyo lang yung R group, parang pa-letter L. Dito rin ako nalilito, no? Na yung isoleucine, yung may hawak ng pa-letter L na itsura ng R group instead na leucine. Okay? Ayan. And then, methionine, considered na non-polar yan. Although it's not actually aliphatic, pero sa Leninger, no? Yung Leninger na book, kinoconsider na non-polar yan due to the sulfur na nakapagitnaan ng dalawang carbon atoms, just like in ethers. Diba? Ethers, kung naalala nyo rin sa organic, they are considered non-polar. Itong thioethers, kapag sulfur instead ng oxygen, ayan, methionine yan, yung may ganun na structure. Sa proline, this is very unique. We will be mentioning it again later, kung ano meron sa proline. So the proline, you have a 5-membered ring wherein the alpha carbon and the alpha amino groups are parts of it or members of that ring. Okay? Ayan. Sa aromatic R groups, syempre madaling tandaan. Aromatic, merong aromatic ring. For phenylalanine, coming from, compare natin sa alanine. Yung isa sa mga hydrogen sa alanine, pinalitan ng phenyl group. Kaya naging phenylalanine. Okay? So tyrosine, instead na from phenylalanine, may dinagdag na hydroxyl group. Anong meron ngayon? Parang nagkakaroon ka ng phenolic na group sa side chain niya. So if you have that structure, you have tyrosine. Tryptophan, ito yung medyo mahirap tandaan din, no? Na structure. Yan, basta merong indole ring, ang tawag dito indole ring, yan yung tryptophan. Okay. And then for the polar uncharged R groups, serine, threonine. So you have these two as the, sa classification ng R group, pwede din sila maklasify as the alcoholic amino acids. Meron kang alcohol or hydroxyl group sa kanilang side chain. Kaya alcoholic amino acids yan. And then cysteine, thiol, considered polar pa rin yan. Okay? Unlike dito sa methionine, no? Parang pinapagitan ng dalawang carbon yan. So if we consider the polarity, hindi siya polar unlike nitong cysteine. You also have asparagine and glutamine. Counterpart, or these are the amide counterparts of the acidic amino acids. So aspartic acid, you have asparagine if you have an amide here. And glutamate, you have glutamate kapag meron kang amide dito. Yeah. So that is one way para memorize nyo yung structure. I-group nyo sila, yung amino acids na yan, in terms of their R groups. Kasi kapag group nyo rin sila in terms of their R groups, madali rin yan sa prediction na magiging properties nila. Will they be acidic, basic, will they be charged at certain pH? Ayan, tatakal din natin yan later. Okay, ito pa. So nag-provide din ako dito ng slide na kung saan may provide na mnemonics per groups of amino acid. So dito, nakagrupo naman yung aliphatic amino acids. Pwede nyo igrupo ng ganito. So you have glycine, alanine, valine, leucine, isoleucine, and proline. And again, take note, bukod sa structure, dapat na-memorize ninyo yung 3-letter codes. Madali lang naman yung 3-letter codes. Usually, first 3 letters ng amino acids. Yun yung 3-letter codes niya. Except for isoleucine, halimbawa, hindi iso, ile. Ang kanyang first 3-letter code. Okay? And usually, for the 1-letter code, it is the first letter nung name ng amino acid. So glycine G, alanine A, valine V, leucine L, isoleucine I, so on and so forth. Okay? Diyan pa lang sa aliphatic amino acids. But if we have the aromatic amino acids for phenylalanine, letter F na, phenylalanine F. Parang nagamit na kasi yung P sa proline, kaya di na tayo pwede gumamit ng P to assign sa phenylalanine. 1 letter lang ang kailangan natin to denote that. So parang ginawa na lang letter F. Okay? And then tyrosine, Y. Bakit? Kasi kumbaga meron ng threonine. Nauna lang dito sa pagkakapresent ko, no? So binigyan na lang ng Y, kasunod ng letter T. Tryptophan, ito yung weird kasi wala namang W sa name ng tryptophan, no? So, ang alala ko sa lecture namin no undergrad, palatandaan na lang, tryptophan. Parang, nahihirapang bigkasin yung R. So, nagiging W instead na R. So, tryptophan, kaya W, palatandaan. Or yung iba, ang sabi dyan, parang sa structure, doon sa indole ring, may pa-W. Somewhere dyan, may pa-W na kaya naging W daw. Iba-iba kasi, understand din ng mga tao. Kumbaga, hindi naman talaga siya absolutely inassign, arbitrary lang na kanya-kanya ng palatandaan yung mga tao. For basic amino acids, histidine, H, lysine ay K, o wala rin yan. Ginawa na lang K. And then arginine, R. Sounds like R. So, letter R ang inassign. Sa alcoholic amino acids, serine, threonine. So, ang ganda ng mnemonic na to. Alcohol is a serious threat. So, ang daling tandaan na serine at threonine yun. So, ayan. And then, sulfur-containing methionine, met, cysteine, ayan, CM. And then, acidic amino acids, aspartic acid, glutamic acid. So, letter D ang inassign sa aspartic acid kasi, ang sabi, aspartic acid daw. Yung pinanggalingan. And then, glutamic acid ay glutamic acid daw. Ayan. So, asparagine, N sa dulo, and then glutamine, Q. Bakit Q? Sabi ng iba, Q-tamine daw. Cute na amino acid. Yun yung naging palatandaan nila. So, those are some of the ways to remember yung 1-letter codes na yan. Kasi sa board exam, hindi ipaprovide minsan ang complete name ng amino acids. Minsan ang ipaprovide lang ay one-letter codes or three-letter codes. So again, it is very important that you know or memorize these codes. Okay? Yan. Kanya-kanyang diskarte na lang din. Or kung pwede niyong gamitin yung sinuggest ko. Moving forward, let's talk about the properties of the amino acids. So the amino acids are known to be amphoteric in nature. Ano ba pag sinabing amphoteric? Makikita niyo yan dito sa reaction, no? So amino and carboxyl groups of amino acids together with the ionizable R groups. So we have seen earlier that there are R groups that can be positively charged or negatively charged. We pertain to them as the ionizable R groups. So they can act as weak acids or bases in solution. So we are using in this illustration, we will be using the Bronsted-Lowry definition ng acids or bases, wherein the amino group can act as a proton acceptor or a Bronsted-Lowry base, and the carboxyl group can act as a Bronsted-Lowry acid, which is the weak acid, which can donate a proton, or it can serve as a proton donor. Okay? Yeah. So for example, you have this amino acid. So general lang kasi R group na nilagay. So in-emphasize dito na at fully protonated form, let's say of a certain amino acid, you can have a proton at the carboxyl group and another at the amino group instead of the usual na NH2 na encounter. Fully protonated form. And you can see, let's consider R group to be neutral, walang charge. The amino acid will have a positive charge of or positive 1 charge. Okay? So if the proton is dislodged from the carboxyl group or na-deprotonate yung carboxyl group, magkakaroon ka na ng COO minus, another charged group ng molecule natin ng amino acids. So you can see now in one molecule, you can see both the positive and the negative charges, making the overall charge of the molecule to be 0, or the net charge, or there will be no net charge. Such molecules are referred to as Zwitter ions or hybrid ions, neutral molecules that carries both positive and negative charges at different locations. So magkaiba, magkalayo, or magkaibang location sa molecule yung positive and negative charges. So that is one common property of the amino acids due to the presence of these two functional groups in their structure. Okay? Take note that the proton of the carried by the group, yung amine natin, yung sobrang proton, pwede rin matanggal yan, ma-deprotonate to revert back to its native form na NH2 lang, making the overall charge of negative 1. So makikita natin yan, property na yan dito, if we consider, let's say, the titration of glycine. Okay? Ano bang importance ng na maintindihan natin to? Doon tayo sa isoelectric point. Okay? So understanding the process ng titration, let's say titration, or yung acid-base property ng amino acid, kapag nag-perform daw ng titration using a base, so dyan sa x-axis, you have the equivalence of hydroxide ion. So technically, starting with a fully protonated form of the amino acid, ano yung nangyayari sa kanya? Or ano yung stages na mangyayari dyan? Okay? So, let's consider glycine. Okay? So for glycine, you only have two ionizable groups, yung alpha amino group at yung alpha carboxyl group. Okay? So at the start, fully protonated form yan. But as you add base, ano nangyayari? Tumataas yung pH. So sa y-axis yung pH natin. And there will come a point na kapag tag-add ka ng enough hydroxide ions, the proton, one of the protons will be, or matatanggal, or madadeprotonate yung carboxyl group natin dyan pag na-reach na tong value ng pKa1 or pK1 of 2.34. So starting doon, matatanggal yan, and then as you add more base, it will reach a certain pH with a value of 5.97, yung Pi, that's considered as the isoelectric point. Okay? So that is the characteristic pH at which the net electric charge is 0. Or dun na nag-exist yung Zwitter ionic form ng glycine. Okay? And then as you add more base, saka madedeprotonate yung itong amino group na to para magkaroon ka ng NH2 or amine group mo. Okay? Kaya. And other important information that you can obtain from here, from this slide, is that the calculation of the PI or isoelectric point. So isoelectric point, pwede rin niya ma-encounter niyo sa questionnaire sa board exam na isoelectric pH or minsan hindi PI ang notation, IPH. Basta pH na merong letter I sa unahan, isoelectric pH yung tinatanong doon. Okay? So to determine that, if you know the values of the pK through each the protonation process or each reaction, yung corresponding pK niyan, you just get the average of the two. Okay? That will give you the value of the PI. So kung itatry nyo ngayon, i-average tong 9.60 at 2.34, makukuha nyo ay 5.97. Okay? So that is applicable if you have these amino acid na considering na ang ionizable groups lang ay yung alpha amino group at alpha carboxyl group. Okay? Ano pa? Yung importanteng information na pwede natin makuha dito. Consider the blue shaded regions in ang titration curve. If you remember in your analytical chemistry, the concept of buffers. Okay? Meron ang tinatawag na buffering regions sa titration curve. Okay? So, in the titration curve of glycine, there are two buffering regions. So, minsan, ang tanong, ilang buffering regions meron sa glycine? Okay? So, ang sagot ay 2. Okay? Kasi, buffering regions ay considered na, if I'm not mistaken, sa analytical chemistry, pKa plus minus 1. So that range of pH, okay, will be considered as the buffering range, okay, or buffering region ng amino acid. Ayan. So dalawa ang pK values niya, so pwede siya makakaroon ng dalawang buffering regions. Okay, pwede rin ma-encounter yon. So, in my year, nagtig ako noong 2019, may tanong na ganon. Nagtanong kung ilang buffering regions meron. Ayan. Naalala ko lang. And then, if you consider naman, paano naman kapag, ito kasi kanina, sa glycine, simple lang. Walang ionizable group sa R group. Paano naman kapag meron? In the case of, let's say, an acidic amino acid, at kapag basic, so yung carboxyl group ng glutamate, for example, glutamic acid, it can be considered to be ionizable. So, dadagdag yun sa i-consider natin sa pagdetermine ng isoelectric point or sa pag-construct ng, basically, ng titration curve. So, again, palaging kapag i-consider yung mga ganitong concepts, you always start with the fully protonated form ng amino acid. Okay? So, for the fully protonated form, again, upon reaching a pH equivalent or equal to the pK1, 2.19, it will result to, or kumbaga yun yung start ng magde-deprotonate yung kung ano man na value ng pKa yung naka-assign or anong group yung naka-assign sa pK value na yun. So, sa literature din, sa textbooks, may mga tables na pinaprovide na yung alpha carboxyl group, let's say for example ng glutamate ay 2.19. And then provided din yung pKa value corresponding to the alpha amino group ng glutamic acid na 9.67. Makikita nyo rin yan. And of course, given din yun sa COOH na 4.25. Common question dyan. Sir, kailangan bang sauluhin yung values na yun? Napakadami ng values na yun, hindi nyo kailangan sauluhin yun kasi usually binibigay naman yun sa tanong. It's just, you have to know para saan yung given na pKa value na yun. Is it for the carboxyl group, the amino group, or the side chain? Okay, minsan, explicitly binibigay na para yan sa ganitong group, yan. Pero minsan hindi. Mamaya, bibigay ako na question na gano'n. Example, sample question. Okay? Yan. So if you look at the titration curve, again, you have 3 buffering regions naman sa glutamate. Okay? Meron kang 3 pKa values. But how do you know kapag hindi mo alam, let's say yung PI? Bakit nandito ang PI sa gitna ng dalawa na to, ng pKa na to, dalawang pKa na to? Kasi, again, the PI is defined as the pH or yung isoelectric point. Kumbaga, net electric charge ng amino acid ay 0 or yung predominant form ng amino acid ay 0 or merong net charge na 0 yung amino acid. Okay? Ayan. So if you take the average of the 4.25 here and 2.19 here, you will get this value. You can identify that. Hindi ko lang din nabanggit kanina, yung information din na pwede nyo makuha sa mga titration curve, ang pwede ring itanong, ano yung predominant or what is the predominant form or the, what is the charge or overall charge or the charge of the predominant form of the amino acid at this given pH. For example, tinanong kayo, ano yung predominant form ng glutamic acid? Ano yung charge ng predominant form ng glutamic acid at pH 7? Naalala ninyo? Okay? So we can deduce that by looking simply at the pK values. So ang 7 ay nasa gitna ng 4.25 na pK na to, pKr, and pK2, 4.1 at 9.67. Sa gitna ng dalawang to, ano yung predominant form na nag-e-exist? Sa gitna ng pKr at ng pK2. Itong form na to. So you can answer that the charge of the predominant form of glutamic acid at pH 7 is negative 1. Okay? Ganun lang yan. So, paano naman kapag basic? Ganun lang din. Starting with the fully protonated form, you have to know the net charge ng buong species na yon. Ayan. Plus 2, tapos maging plus 1. 0, negative 1, then you can see na meron 3 buffering regions din at nasaan ngayon ang isoelectric pH nila. Nandito na sa histidine. No? Nandito na sa gitna ng pK2 at ng pKr. Yung nasa gitna niya. So, isang clue din, kasi minsan para mabilis din kayo magsagot, kailangan kasi time din. Yung biochemistry usually short, may lang yung time na binibigay, pero kaya naman, answerable naman. Isang way din para ma-determine kapag tanong kayo ng PI, kapag acidic yung side chain or yung amino acid, usually ang isoelectric point niyan ay less than 7. So makikita niyo nasa glutamic acid, nasa 3.22. Kapag basic, usually yan ay greater than 7, kaya 7.59. So isang clue din yun para di kayo mahirapang mag-deduce na magiging sagot sa multiple choice. Halimbawa. Okay. So, halimbawa, naka-encounter kayo ng ganyan tanong. So, let's have our first sample question. So, what is the isoelectric point of arginine given that the pKa values? So, minsan pwedeng ganito ang bigay. So, explicitly binigay na yung pKa value for the alpha carboxyl group of arginine is 2.2. For the alpha amino group, that is 9.0. And then for the R group, it is 12.5. So how do you approach this kind of problem pag na-encounter niyo yan? So syempre, dapat alam ninyo yung structure ng arginine. Bakit kailangan malaman ng structure ng arginine? Kasi kailangan yung i-determine ano yung magiging overall charge ng amino acid na yan at its fully protonated form. So if we draw something like this, na katulad sa mga pinapresent ko kanina sa slides, you can punta ka dun sa goal mo na ma-determine tong isoelectric, sorry sa typographical, isoelectric point ng arginine. Okay? So starting with the fully protonated form, so dapat alam nyo na pag fully protonated form yan, protonated yung amino group, and then protonated tong carboxyl group, hence dito sa drawing ko dito sa gilid, yung COOH, merong hydrogen, merong proton. And then, of course, since ionizable or basic itong arginine, may proton dapat. So in arginine, dapat di kayo malilito, this is the nitrogen that will accept a proton or yung magkakaroon ng charge, hindi itong nitrogen na to. Okay? That is for the reason na yung lone pair na nandito sa nitrogen in its native state or uncharged state is more available than the lone pair of nitrogen here. Kaya siya yung mas madaling maghahawak ng proton doon. At kapag dinowing ninyo ang fully protonated form ng arginine, dapat ito yung merong charge. Okay? Although, ayun, dapat alam nyo lang din yan, pero dapat, pwede namang maging ang alam nyo lang, since basic yan, basta alam nyo yung R group, may charge yon, may +1 doon. Okay? So yung alpha amino group may +1, and then walang charge yung COOH, so ang overall charge at fully protonated form is +2. So you are starting with a molecule that is positively charged, and in charge is +2. So let's say nag-undergo ng deprotonation, ano yung mauuna na madedeprotonate? Paano nyo madedecide yun? So mauuna, syempre, ay yung may pinakamababang pKa value, 2.2. Pinakamababa yung COOH, so yun yung unang madedeprotonate. So if you consider the structure of the first acid dissociation or dissociation ng proton, first deprotonation, okay, yan, yung mga pwede nyong tawag doon. Okay, so matatanggal yung proton sa carboxyl group, so magiging ganito na yung itsura niya. And now, what will be the charge of this species? It will be +1, kasi meron kang -1, +1, +1, total nila ay +1. Okay? Then, next, ayan, so next ay pKa2. Ano naman yung mangyayari? Ano yung madidissociate dyan? So, syempre yung next na value sa 2.2, which is 9.0. So, at that value, 9.0, matatanggal ay yung sa alpha amino group. So, magiging native structure na lang na wala ng proton. Kaya magkakaroon ka ng ganito. Ano na yung charge niya ngayon? Charge niya ay meron ka -1, may +1 dito. So, 0 na. So, ito yung gusto nating tingnan ngayon. Ano yung magiging isoelectric point given that we are now going to consider na yung pKa value na gagamitin natin ay 9.0 at syempre yung isa na hindi natin nagagamit ay 12.5. So just getting the average of the two, okay, you can determine the isoelectric point na 10.75. Hence your answer is letter B, 10.75. So I hope that is clear. Meron bang questions? Madali lang naman ang pag-determine. So, technique din, no, na kahit kung tutuusin nyo, basta alam nyo na dapat may charge yung R group, kahit hindi nyo sa ulo to, no, pero dapat sa ulo nyo pa rin. Yung structure, baka mamaya magtanong sa boards, alin dyan yung amino acid na to? Alin sa mga structures na given yung amino acid na yan? So, para mabilis lang sa mga ganitong tanong, basta tandaan nyo na merong group dito dapat may charge. So, kahit hindi nyo na, alam nyo na lang dapat na may +1 doon, +1 dito, at ito ay 0, ang total ay +2. Next ay +1. So, isulat ninyo na merong, yung sa gitna nito, isulat nyo yung 2.2. And then, next naman na deprotonation ay 0. Isulat nyo sa gitna ng dalawa, 9.0. And then, next, -1 yung charge. So, isulat nyo rin sa gitna nilang dalawa yung value ng pKa. Okay? So, kung ano yung dalawang values na kung pinapanggitnaan yung 0, okay, ano yung dalawang values na yun? Yun yung gagamitin ninyo para calculate yung PI. 10.75. So, ganun kadali lang ang pag-calculate ng isoelectric pH. Ano pa yung ibang klase ng tanong na pwede nyo ma-encounter? Ito, halimbawa. What is the net charge of aspartic acid at pH 7.2? Reverse naman. No? So, kung reverse, paano atake natin? So, again, maganda alam nyo rin yung structure para kaya nyo rin magawa ng ganitong diagram halimbawa. Kasi kung kaya ninyo, na starting with, again, unahin lagi ang fully protonated form. Anong charge ng fully protonated form? Dapat alam nyo na +1. And then first deprotonation is 2.1. So, kapag may na-deprotonate, ano yung matatanggal? Yung COOH, yung alpha carboxyl group. So, 0 na may overall charge niya. And then, 3.9, -1. After nun, and then next deprotonation na gamit na 9.8 ay -2. So, the question now, ano yung net charge? Alin sa apat na yan? Ay, sorry. Na-spoil tuloy agad. So, alin sa apat na yan yung magbibigay ng net charge ng aspartic acid at pH 7.2. So to know that, hanapin nyo lang sa alin sa pKa values na yan, yung alin sa gitna ng pKa values na yan, yung papatak yung value na 7.2. So 7.2 falls between 3.9 and 9.8. So yung structure na nasa gitna nun ay negative 1. So the answer should be letter C, negative 1. Ayan. So madali lang din ang atake natin dyan. Okay? So let's continue with our discussion. So for the peptide bond, so it is formed via a dehydration reaction between the carboxyl group of one amino acid and the amino group of another. Yeah. So shown here is a reversible process. So the dehydration reaction, that is the forward reaction, so involving two amino acids. So a peptide bond is formed between two amino acids, which involves the removal of the hydroxyl group or yung OH galing dito sa first amino acid at yung H galing dito sa second amino acid na nakadikit sa amine functional group. So the removal of these group will result to formation of water, kaya dehydration, natanggalan ng water, and these carbon atom at yung nitrogen atom na to, magdidikit yan, forming the peptide bond. So ito yung peptide bond. Anong functional group yung makikita ninyo dito sa peptide bond? It is an amide functional group. That is why sometimes they refer to the peptide bond as the amide bond. Okay? Amide, or sa iba ang pronunciation, amide. Amide. Kanya-kanya ng pronunciation, no, sa organic chemistry. Ayan. Okay. So it is also important to know that the peptide bond exhibits a partial double bond character due to resonance. So again, kaya maganda, strong yung foundation nyo rin sa organic para naiintindihan nyo yung concepts ng biochem. Ayan. So ano yung nagiging consequence ng partial double bond character ng peptide bond? That is that the carbon to nitrogen bond, so yung bond na to, carbon, nitrogen, yung bagong band na na-form, sa pinakita ko kanina sa previous slide, ito, yan daw, hindi yan basta-basta nag-rotate. Eh, ano bang alam natin sa single bonds? Sa organic. Let's say, meron kang carbon to carbon single bond. Di ba alam niyo yon na merong conformers na tinatawag na nagre-resulta sa rotation across that single bond ng atoms. But in the case of peptide bonds, due to resonance or yung delocalization of the electrons here, it will result to the formation of a partial double bond character between the carbon and nitrogen. Okay? Kaya magkakaroon or kumbaga hindered na yung rotation across the carbon to nitrogen bond. Okay? Ayan. And that will also indicate the stability of the peptide bond due to the formation of the partial double bond character. Kaya sinasabi nila, relatively stable ang peptide bond. Okay. So we have already talked about the amino acids and how these certain amino acids connect with each other in order to form, let's say, peptides. Okay? Or habang tumatagal, pwede makabuo ng proteins kapag sobrang dami na nila, or polypeptides ang mabuo. Okay? So in the next section, we are going to discuss the levels of protein structure, wherein here, we are going to describe the 4 levels and also identify the stabilizing forces or relative or certain interactions that occur within the molecule or within a protein molecule. Okay? And each structure will also indicate the resulting nature or shape of the biologically active protein. Okay? So starting with the primary structure, so parang dinidiscuss na natin ay itong architecture or protein architecture ba sa halimbawa, okay? Na may-refer sa mga textbook, protein architecture or levels of protein structure. So for primary structure, you have the linear sequence of the amino acids in a polypeptide chain. So pag sinabing primary structure, ayun lang. Ano yung pagkakasunod-sunod ng amino acids dyan? At paano ang amino acids na yan nagkakadugtong-dugtong or nagkakadikit-dikit? So they are held together or the stabilizing force that governs the primary structure of the proteins is the peptide bonds. Okay, dapat alam nyo rin yun. So let's say you already have the primary structure. Okay, so again, you have to know that these amino acids na present dyan sa primary structure, they bear different R groups. And you already know that these R groups have different functional groups that can carry out different properties, or they can form different interactions that can exhibit or result to folding of these chains or chains of amino acids. Hence, there is the formation of a secondary level or the secondary structure. It is formed by regular folding of the polypeptide backbone, and the stabilizing force is the formation of hydrogen bonds between two adjacent backbones. Pag sinabing backbones, sequence or isang string ng amino acids. Isang string, kumbaga isang string ng primary structure ng amino acid. Okay? So, the folding can result in different forms. You have what you call the alpha helix, the beta pleated sheets, the collagen helix, and the beta turn or beta bend. So, nakikita nyo minsan sa mga pag nagpapakita or nakikita ninyo yung representation ng proteins sa mga libro, sa books, or kapag nakapag-perform na kayo ng mga in silico modeling, mga ganon, or makita niyo yung mga arrows na yan, and then yung mga parang ribbons na yan. So they are used to represent the secondary structure of proteins at certain regions of the protein molecule. So you have the alpha helix, ito naman kapag beta pleated sheet arrow. So yung arrow, it indicates the direction, or kumbaga, pwedeng dito yung start ng amino acid, papunta doon yung na-form na amino acid or nadadagdag. Okay? Or kumbaga, ito yung amino acid residue number 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. Okay? It is also important to know that these hydrogen bonds form between two adjacent backbones. So you can see here, no? Yung hydrogen bonds na yan ay na-form between saan nakita ninyo? For example, here. Itong nitrogen na to, that is part of the backbone ng amino acid. Okay? Backbone ng amino acid. Backbone ng peptide chain or ng polypeptide or ng primary structure or yung sequence. Okay? Ayan. So, yung nitrogen na yan, merong hydrogen group, hydrogen atom. So, of course, due to the presence of that, it should be capable of forming a hydrogen bond with another oxygen atom that is also part of the peptide backbone ng protein. Okay? So, that interaction between two groups that is present at the backbone of the polypeptide, magkakaroon ka ng secondary structure. Okay? Okay. Yeah. Saan na ba? Ayan. Okay. So, ito yung isang nababanggit din or lumalabas din sa board exam, yung about sa proline and its relationship din sa secondary structure. So proline is notable due to its structure, kakaiba yung structure niya. Okay, nagkakaroon ng 5-membered ring. So due to it being unusual, it can cause a disruption on the regular secondary structures such as alpha helices and beta sheets. Okay? Yeah. So the cyclic structure is related to the conformational rigidity. Kumbaga, hindi basta-basta nagro-rotate or nahihirapang mag-adjust or kumilo. Kumbaga dito, parang kumikilo, di ba, yung amino acids ninyo. Para maka-form ng hydrogen bond, yung part ng backbone ng proline with another amino acid. So, kumbaga medyo weird or hindi makaabot yan sa another amino acid, kaya hindi siya stabilize ng alpha helix, kaya nagkakaroon ng disruption. Instead na magkaroon ng hydrogen bonding, hindi nagkakaroon. Kaya nagkakaroon ng tatawag na kinks dun sa mga alpha helices natin. So, Ano yung nagiging gamit ngayon ng proline? So for proline, it is actually part of another secondary structure na tinatawag natin na beta turns. So it stabilizes the turns. So usually the turns are designated by these strings, yung parang ganyan lang na nakikita ninyo, that connect two secondary structures. And also collagen triple helices. So yung structure ng collagen. Halimbawa, yung triple helix. Hindi ko lang napakita dito, no? Yeah. Okay, so that's for the secondary structure. Paano na kapag tertiary structure? So the overall three-dimensional shape of a single polypeptide chain, yun ang yung tinitingnan kapag tertiary structure. So for most proteins that are known to be biologically active, kahit tertiary structure lang ang naabot nila, okay na yon. Okay, parang hindi na kailangan na magkaroon pa ng quaternary structure. So that is why we can say that for most or for almost all of the biologically active proteins, tertiary structure is the conformation or yung usual na common na presence sa kanila. Okay? So the stabilizing forces for the tertiary structure, ito, hydrophobic interactions. So pag sinabing hydrophobic interactions, yan ay galing na sa interactions ng yan, interactions na ng non-polar R groups. So you can see it here sa, to halimbawa, if you have valine residues na present sa polypeptide chain. So let's say at this part or at this portion ng polypeptide, merong valine, and then dito mas malayo sa kanya, if they form a hydrophobic interaction, it can result to folding of the polypeptide. Okay, and then hydrogen bonding, it can also result from the formation of course, hydrogen bonds between polar side chains naman. So let's say may hydroxyl groups, let's say serine and threonine. Okay, so or ito sa halimbawa dito ay this is for the asparagine. Okay, so asparagine ito, tapos ito naman ay sa serine, the two can form a hydrogen bond between the two side chains ng amino acids na yan, resulting to a folding. So para magkaroon ng certain tertiary structure. And then electrostatic interactions, so kapag meron kang charged side chains, so we can also refer to it as ionic bonding, yung electrostatic interactions. So kapag merong protonated na amine group and then the protonated na carboxyl group, they can form an electrostatic interaction or an ionic bond. Okay? It can also result to a tertiary structure. Disulfide bridges are the only covalent interactions or covalent bonding among the four stabilizing forces of the tertiary structure. So it is a bond formed between two cysteine amino acid residues. So property ng cysteine ay yung thiol groups na pwedeng, kapag meron kang dalawang cysteine residues, pwedeng magdikit at makaform ng disulfide linkage via the process of oxidation. So ma-oxidize itong dalawa to form a disulfide linkage. And in reverse, yung disulfide linkage, pwedeng bumalik yan sa dati by the process of reduction naman. Okay? Yeah. Di ko pa na napapansin, no? May questions sa chat. Ano mostly mga type ng questions sa biochem na lumalabas sa Chemist Board exam since 2020? Later, i-cover na lang din natin. Medyo general yung question. Provided na ba mga drawings sa molecular structures sa board exams or mostly pangalan lang at you need to figure out the molecular structures? Ang alam ko, most of the time, hindi pinaprovide yung molecular structures, no? Kaya sabi ko rin kanina, maganda na ma-memorize na ninyo yung molecular structures ng amino acids. Kaya, ayun, hindi minsan pinaprovide or wala talagang pinaprovide sa biochem. Parang sa board exam ko noon, parang organic lang ang nakita ko na may structure, wala sa biochem. Ayan. Okay. So, continuing with our discussion, so that's for the tertiary. Mention ko na lang din, baka malito kayo, no, between secondary and tertiary structure. Pag sinabing hydrogen bonding na secondary structure, again, that is between the polypeptide backbone. Okay? Yun yung nagkakaroon ng interaction. Pero kapag sa tertiary naman, that is between the R groups na, hindi na polypeptide ang involved. Doon sila nagkakaiba ng hydrogen bonding. Kaya distinct yung sa tertiary at sa secondary. Now, for the quaternary structure, which is the highest level of structure in protein, so as mentioned earlier, hindi naman kailangan na magkaroon ng quaternary structure for some proteins para maging biologically active sila. So kahit tertiary pa lang, biologically active na yung iba. But for some, the structure formed when two or more polypeptide chains or subunits, or sometimes we refer to them as the, yun na nga, yung tertiary structures. When they aggregate into one functional macromolecule, you have the quaternary structure. So the subunits may be held together by similar interactions present at the tertiary level, primarily the non-covalent interaction. So yun kadalasan that ang stabilizing forces ng quaternary structure, yung mga non-covalent interactions. So itong halimbawa dito sa gilid, if you are familiar with this is one representation ng hemoglobin. So hemoglobin is one example of a protein that has a quaternary structure. So you have four distinct subunits. Okay, we refer to them as alpha chain 1, alpha chain 2, beta chain 1, and beta chain 2. Okay? So, when they aggregate, so para maging functional ang hemoglobin, kailangan yung apat na subunits na yan. Kaya we refer to it having quaternary structure. Okay. So, an application of understanding the levels of protein structure ay yung sa sickle cell anemia. For example, at primary level, magkaroon lang ng mutation sa DNA that will be needed to code the amino acid sequence of the hemoglobin. Let's say, nagkaroon ng error sa pag-code ng glutamic acid, amino acid residue number 6. Instead na glutamic acid ang na-produce, nagkaroon ng valine. Ano bang pinagkaiba ng glutamic acid at valine? So, ang glutamic acid that is a polar, or kumbaga merong COOH, or pwede siyang maging charge. At yung valine naman ay aliphatic non-polar. So, kumbaga, if you think about it, they will exhibit different interactions when it comes to stabilizing forces for the protein to conform a tertiary structure. Okay? So, parang madi-disrupt na yung structure ng dito pa lang. Masasabi mo na ganun. Pakikita pa lang sa primary level. And then, if you look at the shape of the resulting secondary and tertiary structures, so, di ba pagdating dito, nandito na yung folding ng polypeptide chain, iba yung nagiging itsura ng beta subunit ng hemoglobin. So, kumbaga, parang may uka doon na nagiging itsura ay parang nagre-reflect din siya sa mismong itsura ng ng blood cell na mayroong sickle cell anemia. So, parang ganyan. Merong uka due to the lack of glutamic acid or COOH group that should be participating in a molecular interaction within the secondary or tertiary level. Okay? So, as a result, you will have a sickle cell hemoglobin instead of a hemoglobin due to the error na yun, na install ngayon. Kaya nagkakaroon ng sickle cell anemia. So, ang further result sa function, again, ano ba dapat ang ginagawa ng hemoglobin? Its function is to carry oxygen through the blood. Okay? So, kapag normal hemoglobin, globular structure nila, walang nagkakaroon ng interaction sa isa't isa, parang soluble lang kumbaga sa blood, ayan, they can perform their function. But if you have sickle cell hemoglobin, instead na hiwa-hiwalay sila, may tendency na magkadikit-dikit. Diba? Isang amino acid lang yung nagkamali or may error. Due to valine na kaya mag-cause ng non-polar interaction or hydrophobic interaction, the hemoglobin molecules can aggregate to form this structure. Ayan. So that is one application ng understanding ng amino acid, ng levels of protein structure. And then, we have already discussed yung other classification of proteins kanina. Meron na lang by nutrient requirement and then by classification ng R groups sa structure niya. So, pwede rin according to shape. So, meron tayong globular proteins at fibrous proteins. So, for globular proteins, polypeptide chain coiled to form a compact spherical molecule, kaya nga globular. So, parang somewhat spherical yung structure niya. And the globular proteins may be soluble or insoluble in water depending on the type. And they can be mobile. So, example na lang natin kanina, hemoglobin. So, kaya nga kaya nila mag-carry ng oxygen and i-distribute niya sa body. Okay? And it is known to be somewhat soluble. Okay? Also, albumin, considered na globular, gluten, prolamine, and of course, the enzymes that aid the different metabolic processes or reactions na part ng iba't ibang pathways sa cells. Okay? For fibrous proteins, the polypeptide chains held together to form long thin structures, kaya nagiging fibrous kumbaga yung structure nila. And due to their structures known to be large, masyadong large para maging soluble sa water, magiging insoluble na sila, technically. And due to their structure or nature nila, they are known to be rigid, and that rigidity will conform to the structural function ng mga protein na yan. Katulad na lang ng collagen, na part ng sa skin, sa bones, and then keratin, for which is the major component of major protein in hair, and elastin. Okay? So yan yung mga fibrous proteins na may function na ganyan. So sa board exam, no, dapat familiar din kayo na ganito yung mga example ng globular, fibrous, ayan. So pinagkaiba lang nila to represent the fibrous protein. Usually they conform somewhat helical, or yung strands nila nagkakadikit-dikit lang due to, let's say, hydrogen bonding. As mentioned earlier sa secondary structure, na yung collagen helix, it is considered as a secondary structure due to the stabilizing forces of the hydrogen bonding between the groups present at the polypeptide backbone. Okay? And for globular proteins, yan, nagkaka-aggregate lang, kakaroon ng folding, kaya instead na strands yung na-form, globular. Okay? Nagfo-fold yung strands ng proteins. Okay? And then, ito, naka-specify din sa TOS natin, no, sa Table of Specifications na nire-release ng PRC, na kapag, if we are to understand the structure or the differences in the structure of the proteins, usually nagiging tanong din yung sa hemoglobin at myoglobin. So for myoglobin, so these two proteins perform the same function or almost the same. So binding ng oxygen. Okay? So for myoglobin, this serves as an oxygen storage for the muscles. Kaya located sila sa muscles. So parang i-release lang nila yung oxygen na yan kapag during high energy processes, let's say nag-exercise, ganyan. Okay? And then, yung structure ng myoglobin, monomeric lang yan. So if you look here, dito sa right, isang polypeptide lang yan. Okay? Isang single polypeptide chain lang yan. Okay? Unlike sa hemoglobin, na mention natin kanina, 4 subunits, meaning 4 polypeptide chains that are folded, or 4 distinct subunits yan. Or we call it a tetramer. Okay? So the location is in red blood cells, and they perform in oxygen transport throughout the body. And then the heme groups, so yung heme, yung doon na parang donut na nakikita nyo sa representation natin. So one heme group, meaning it will bind only one oxygen molecule per one molecule of myoglobin. But for hemoglobin, it can bind up to 4 oxygen molecules since it has 4 heme groups. Kasi dun sa heme group, nagbabind yung oxygen na yan. And then, for the affinity to oxygen, technically, mas mataas ang affinity ng myoglobin sa oxygen unlike sa hemoglobin. Okay, bakit? Doon na nga yung function niya. So ito storage, so dapat hindi niya basta-basta i-release kasi i-store mo nga eh. Transport, i-distribute niya sa cells. So para madaling ma-release sa cells, kailangan hindi siya masyadong matindi yung pagkakakapit niya sa heme. Okay? And then, cooperativity, hindi ko na masyadong elaborate kasi masyadong mahaba ang discussion ito. Just know that there is no cooperativity sa oxygen, between oxygen and myoglobin, and positive naman yung cooperativity ng hemoglobin sa oxygen. So yun yung merong graph na di-discuss yun sa partial oxygen pressure at ano yung itsura ng graph. Okay, so yun ay di-discuss na lang kapag nag-enroll kayo. Okay, hindi ko masyadong complicated yon. Medyo FECAM na rin kung tutuusin. Okay. Okay, so ito na may mention din yung conjugated proteins. So when we say conjugated, these are proteins that contain non-protein constituents. So these non-protein constituents are introduced via post-translational modification. So the process ng post-translational modification or after translation or masynthesize yung polypeptide. So yung folding ng polypeptide para makaform ka ng secondary structure, tertiary structure, it is considered already a post-translational modification. Okay? But other than that, meron pang non-protein constituents na pwedeng introduce, okay, para magkaroon ka ng conjugated proteins. So, parang kailangan kumbaga yung constituents yan para mag-function yung protein na yan. So, some constituents or non-protein parts, we can refer to them as prosthetic group, which is a group that participates in the protein's function. For example, the heme group in hemoglobin, it functions in binding with oxygen para mabuhat ng hemoglobin yung oxygen. FMN, flavin mononucleotide, and flavin adenine dinucleotide, yan ay part ng flavoproteins na encounter niya FMN at FAD sa electron transfer systems or sa pathways. So yan yung mga na-encounter niya. And ito, yung table, kahit tingnan nyo na lang, hindi ko na masyadong elaborate para makadiscuss pa ako kasi baka maubos yung time natin. Okay. Okay, so before we proceed with the next part, sorry, di ko na bago pala yung header nito. Disregard nyo na lang to. Okay, so let's have this sample question. So this is a type of question na pwede nyo rin ma-encounter sa biochem. So which of the following is not considered as stabilizing force in a tertiary structure of proteins? A, hydrogen bonding, B, disulfide linkages, C, hydrophobic interactions, or D, peptide bonds. Okay, so answers. So pwede kayong mag-chat, no? Pwede i-utilize yung chat box natin para makatry kayo makapagsagot. Try lang. Ano yung sagot dyan? Masyadong madali lang naman. No? Kasi na-discuss na rin naman kanina. So I'm getting answers sa chat. So we have answers. So letter D. So very good. Ang sagot natin ay letter D, peptide bonds. Bakit? Ang peptide bonds ay considered na stabilizing force para sa primary structure, hindi sa tertiary structure. Kasi, ayun nga. Ito, tatlo na to, sila yung talagang sa tertiary structure. Okay? Yeah. Okay. So, that's for the part ng protein structure and function na i-cover natin in this lecture. To add na lang din, discuss ko itong some laboratory techniques that are used or pwede ring matanong sa biochem. Okay? So, on separation and purification. So, the proteins, so they can have different properties that we can take advantage of in order to perform the separation and purification. Okay? So, by size or density, you have these laboratory techniques. You have differential centrifugation, isopycnic centrifugation, or sometimes we refer to it as sucrose density, dialysis. Ibang dialysis yan na hindi yan yung sa medical procedure. So yung dialysis na ginagamit for proteins, and gel filtration or size exclusion chromatography, and gel electrophoresis. So let's go to each technique one by one. So for differential centrifugation, This separates large particles from small particles. Usually, ginagamit natin term na particles dito sa technique na to. Kasi minsan, ang magkakaroon ay hindi pa lang protein extracts, minsan cell lysates or parang mixture na merong cells pa. Kaya particles. So these particles vary in their sizes. And this process usually involves separation of organelles. Yun nga, organelles to isolate localized proteins. So kumbaga, hindi lang cytosolic proteins yung pwedeng maging present sa mixture, pwede ring proteins na nasa loob pa ng organelles. Take note that this process is time-dependent. Kumbaga, may required na time for each step or each centrifugation step bago nyo ma-separate yung target ninyo na particle. Okay? So yan, sequential yung application of increasing centrifugal force. So for example, starting with a mixture, sa una, mahina muna. Okay? Kasi pag mahina pa yung centrifugal force, mapaprecipitate mo na dyan yung high or large particles. Okay? And then, separating the large particles from the supernatant liquid natin. Pag tinanggal nyo, dinecant nyo halimbawa or kinuha nyo yan, then nag-perform ulit ng centrifugation at a higher centrifugal force, mas mataas na, 2000 xg na. Ayan, mas separate yung next na, mas maliit dun sa nauna, and then yung pinakamaliit sa dulo. Okay? Increasing yung speed. So yan yung differential centrifugation. Okay? Ganun kasimple lang yan. For the isopycnic or sucrose density centrifugation, it separates particles of different densities naman. So kung kanina sizes, ito, density na yung tinitingnan. And unlike the differential centrifugation, this is time independent. Hindi na nagmamatter masyado ang time dito. Okay? And it relies solely on the actual buoyant density of the particle. So density na lang, hindi na time ang masyadong tinitingnan. And the density increases linearly from top to bottom if you consider, let's say, yung end point or pagtapos na yung process ng centrifugation. So kumbaga yung magiging itsura sa taas ay nandun yung pinaka top to bottom. Baba ang density. So, syempre, di ba, parang lumulutang yung less dense particles at yung mas dense or mas mabigat yung nasa ilalim. So, merong layering na nangyayari dyan. Okay? Or parang nakapapansin din dyan, parang banding patterns din yan. May bands dyan for each particle in their with their different sizes. Okay? And then you have dialysis. So this procedure separates proteins from small solutes by taking advantage of the protein's larger size. So this process ay kapag gusto nyong ma-separate or ma-isolate yung proteins from the rest of the, let's say, nag-extract ka ng protein, and then yung protein naka-dissolve sa buffer. And then yung buffer, merong salts yun, syempre. And sometimes, the downstream procedure or the analysis will require that the proteins are not dissolved in salt solutions. So one way to remove these salts or to desalt is performing dialysis. So in dialysis, you make use of dialysis bags na parang cellophane yan. Okay? So these dialysis bags, they have small pores, napakaliit lang, that will allow the salt particles to pass through the membrane, leaving the larger particles such as the proteins. Okay? So, tapos yung dialysis bag containing the sample, it is also submerged to a buffer. So, ang tendency, lalabas yung mga maliliit na particles at may iwan sa loob yung mas malalaking particles. Okay? And thereby, removing the salt particles, may iwan lang yung proteins. Halimbawa. Okay? So, purpose desalting in dialysis. Gel filtration, size exclusion chromatography, or GFC, o minsan SEC. Yan. So, the separation is according to size, or more particularly, molecular weight. So, the larger proteins being considered having higher molecular weight, they will elute faster, mas mabilis. Or mauuna silang lumagpas through the column at may iwan syempre yung smaller proteins that have smaller molecular weight. Bakit kaya? So the stationary phase has cross-linked polymer beads with pores or cavities. So nakikita niyo yan dito, no? Ayan. So yung isang bead that is one particle of the stationary phase, pwedeng makalusot doon sa loob ng beads na yan yung proteins na mababa yung molecular weight. So ang tendency, matatrap sila doon and then may matatrap sila doon, may iwan sila. So magpo-flow yung mas malalaki and then habang tumatagal yung mga mas pinakamalalaki, sila yung lalagpas at hindi makakalusot dun sa beads na yan. So kung pansin nyo parang may maze, parang may maze dun sa loob ng particles. Kaya nagtatagal kumbaga yung smaller proteins or they will be trapped inside the cavities, leading to longer path through the column. Kaya nahuhuli sila na mag-LU dyan sa GFC. So minsan, common question dyan, ano yung magiging order ng proteins if you are given the molecular weight? So syempre, dapat tandaan nyo lang na una laging mag-elute or makokollect ninyo sa fraction ay yung larger proteins. Tama. Gel electrophoresis. So for gel electrophoresis, ayan, this is used both for separation and characterization. Bakit? Characterization din. So hindi lang may hiwala yung proteins. Makakarakterize rin sila based on isoelectric point and approximate molecular weight. And again, the separation is based on the migration of the charged proteins in an electric field and it is governed by also the sizes. Okay? Kaya papansin nyo, dyan sa animation sa gilid, may lumalabas na bands. Okay? Each band represent a protein. Okay? So generally carried out in gels made up of cross-linked polyacrylamide. So iba naka-perform na yan, yung polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis. May iba't ibang types pa yan. And migration of protein in a gel during electrophoresis is a function of its size and its shape. Electrophoretic mobility, yung property na related dyan sa migration nila. So for the size and shape, yung mga proteins na mas malalaki or matataas yung molecular weight, sila naman ay natatrap sa taas. Kumbaga kabaliktaran na nitong size exclusion chromatography. Okay? So size exclusion, may iwan sa taas yung maliliit, mauunang lumabas yung malalaki. Sa gel electrophoresis, may iwan sa taas yung malalaki, mauuna pababa yung maliliit. Kasi yan ay related sa pore size ng gel na ginawa ninyo, kung gaano kabilis makakalusot yun. Okay? So for proteins, ito yung common na ginagamit. Meron ding native page, pero ito yung banggitin ko na lang, yung SDS page. Mas common to, sodium dodecyl sulfate, polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis. So you make use of this compound, the sodium dodecyl sulfate, which is a 12-carbon compound. So technically, it's a detergent. Okay? So it is a common method for estimation of purity and molecular weight. Okay, so if you, want to determine the molecular weight, so yan yung characterization na part na gel electrophoresis. So SDS, it is a denaturing agent, can partially unfold proteins, causing them to assume rod-like shape. So, di ba yung proteins, merong kinoconform na shape or globular halimbawa. So the SDS will cause the denaturation of the proteins to unfold, and upon unfolding, parang instead na mag-conform pa sa globular shape halimbawa, magiging rod-like shape na lang. At magiging, kumbaga, halos lahat ng proteins magkakaparehas lang ng shape. So, doon pa lang, ginagawa na pare-parehas yung proteins, saan lang sila magkakaiba-iba? Magkakaiba-iba lang sa sizes. So, kumbaga, fina-factor out na yung shape. Aside from that, fina-factor out din yung charges due to the SDS. If this SDS coats the protein, nagbabind kasi yung SDS sa protein, so coat nila, magiging halos lahat ay negatively charged na, thereby eliminating the charge as one of the factors to govern the separation of the proteins across the gel. So thereby, proteins are therefore separated on the basis of mass only, molecular weight. And commonly, the visualizing agent used for SDS page is Kumasi Brilliant Blue, yung pang-staining na part. Okay? So, na-encounter nyo na siguro yan, yung itsura. Alam nyo naman yung brand na yan, yung color green na yan. Yung kadalasang gamit, no? So, nandito yung gel. Minsan nakakabili ng precast na. Tapos ito kapag handcast, parang ganyan ang itsura. Meron kang plates, may spacer plate, ganyan. Tapos may comb. And then, ito yung power source. Then, ito yung tank. Ito yung itsura ng tank. And then, merong electrodes na kinakabit. Tapos, ito yung gel holder. Then, mo nilalagay. Itong gel na to, dyan mo ilalagay sa loob. Pag ira-run mo na. Pag na-load mo na yung proteins. Okay? So, ganito yung itsura ng gel after visualizing. So, commonly, meron kang molecular weight standards or yung protein ladder na tinatawag or markers na merong known molecular weights, and then we estimate the molecular weights of the bands. And you can also see here the use or the application of the gel electrophoresis in the analysis of the purity. So for each lane, pinapakita dyan na merong step na ginawa para maka-achieve ng purified protein. So makikita dito, pagdating sa step na to, isang band na lang indicating na pure na yung protein. And you can estimate the molecular weight of that band. Okay? So, ganyan ang itsura, and you can plot the molecular weight or the logarithm of the molecular weight against the retardation factor or the retention factor ng protein. Ng bands dito sa standard at saka ng unknown protein. Yeah. Then, separation by charge. So, you have the isoelectric focusing and the ion exchange chromatography. Paubos na rin yung time natin, 8:47 na pala. So, medyo papasasan natin, pwede naman balikan na lang yung slides na to. Okay. For the isoelectric focusing, ayan. So, this is used to determine the isoelectric point, nabanggit na yan kanina. Isoelectric point ng protein. So, let's say, di mo alam protein mo, pwede mong gamitin to determine the isoelectric point ng protein na yan. And it utilizes a pH gradient at which the different proteins travel. At kung saan yung tugma na pH sa isoelectric point, doon magsistay yung protein na yan ka nagkakaroon ng bands. Okay? So the isoelectric focusing can be coupled with the SDS page in order to have the two-dimensional electrophoresis. Sorry, medyo nalolobat na pala to. Wait lang. Hindi ko napansin, nalolobat na pala yung laptop. Okay. Muntik na malobat, hindi ko napansin. So going back to our discussion, so to afford the 2D page, you have to perform the isoelectric focusing. So yan yung first step palagi, no? 2 dimensions. The first dimension is separate the proteins in terms of their isoelectric pH by isoelectric focusing. And after that, you ilalatag yung IEF o yung resulting banding pattern na yan, kukunin niyo yan, ilalagay sa taas ng resolving gel para makaperform ng SDS page. So kumbaga, yung traveling behavior na ng proteins na napag-separate sa isoelectric focusing, perpendicular na kumbaga. Kung kanina, pag ganito, direction na yan, pababa na to, this time, hiwalay naman sila. Kasi there are proteins that may have the similar isoelectric point but different molecular weights. Kaya makikita niyo yung dots ng itsura ng resulting na 2D page. Ion exchange chromatography, separation based on sign and magnitude of net electric charge of proteins at a specific pH. So, i-specify yung pH. So we have already discussed yung sa charges ng amino acids. Nag-a-apply din yan sa proteins as a whole. So kumbaga yung proteins natin, they can have an overall specific charge based on the amino acid contents are present in that protein. Kaya it will have a certain behavior kapag sinabject nyo na yung samples nyo sa ion exchange chromatography. Yan. So it has two types, yung pwedeng tawagin na cation exchange chromatography or anion exchange chromatography. So pag sinabing cation exchange or cation exchangers, yung stationary phase niya, it is bound with anionic groups such as the one shown here to the right. Ganito yung itsura niya. So ano nangyayari? So if you have proteins that are positively or yung overall charge ng protein ay positive, these negatively charged resins will attract those proteins, thereby trapping them. Kaya unang may hiwalay ay yung proteins that have net negative charges. So cation exchange. Kabaliktaran naman kapag anion exchanger. So this is just to summarize din, no, para hindi kayo malito. Pag anion exchanger, ang stationary phase ay positively charged. Tapos ang analyte of interest or yung protein na gusto mong i-target dapat negatively charged. So anion exchanger, kukunin niya yung protein or yung negatively charged na anion. Okay? E dapat cation exchanger naman, positively charged yung kinukuha na. Kahit ito na lang tanda, anion exchanger, trap anion. Cation exchanger, trap cation. Para sila yung, pag sino yung i-trap, yun yung mahuhuli na ilabas. Or negatively charged trap, positively charged trap. And then you also have affinity chromatography. So another type ng protein purification technique. So this is based on binding affinity. So highly selective ang affinity chromatography because you have the packing materials that have covalently attached chemical group that you call a ligand. So it is a group or molecule that binds to a macromolecule such as a protein. Okay, so proteins with affinity to the ligand are bound to the beads, stopping migration of the protein through the column. So let's say, for example, you have a sample, then meron kang protein, yung color green dito. Sa resin or sa packing material ng affinity chromatography, merong yung beads nun, merong yung kulay orange na nakikita nyo, yung ligand. That ligand will bind to the protein. It can be covalently, trapping the protein, then ma-elute muna, maunang matanggal yung proteins or other constituents that are not of interest. So kapag natanggal na yon, anong gagawin? You can add a solution of ligand to the column. So yung ligand na present dun sa resin, pwede nyo ilagdag ulit. Kasi ang mangyayari, i-displace ng ligand na idadagdag ninyo yung originally na nakakabit sa resin. At kung madi-displace yun, mare-release na yung protein of interest para ma-collect nyo yun. So medyo, kumbaga, purified niya, ang problema na lang, tatanggalin na lang yung ligand. So pwede rin yung iba ang ginagawa, instead na ligand, pwedeng high salt concentration na solutions ang ginagamit to remove the protein, mare-release yung protein from its interaction with the ligand. Mare-release it. Okay? Okay. So from that, let's just have a few sample questions that will be related to the techniques and somewhat related din sa na-discuss kanina sa protein structure and function. So for example, a mixture of proteins containing lysozyme with an isoelectric point of 11.0 and ovalbumin 4.6 na isoelectric point was dissolved in a buffer of pH 7. Which of the two proteins will be eluted first if the mixture is loaded into an anion exchange column? Letter A, lysozyme. B, ovalbumin. C, lysozyme and ovalbumin will co-elute. Or D, lysozyme and ovalbumin will be bound to the packing material. Okay, so anong atake natin sa problem na to? So kanina ang naging familiar na kayo ay amino acids may isoelectric point.
it is important to know na kahit proteins, meron din silang kinoconsider na isoelectric point. Kaya nga tayo nakapag-perform ng isoelectric focusing. Okay? So, how do we interpret this problem? Paano atake natin? Ang tanong, anion exchange column. Ano ba yung ginagawa pag anion exchange column? Ano yung tinatrap natin? Yung anionic. Yung mga negatively charged na proteins, halimbawa. Okay? So between the two, at pH 7, between lysozyme and albumin, alin sa tingin niyo yung negatively charged overall? Paano natin malalaman yun? By looking at the PI, for example. So the PI of ovalbumin is 4.6. Ano ba ang charge ng ovalbumin at 4.6? Pag ang pH ay 4.6, anong charge ng ovalbumin? 0. Okay? So kung 0 yon, bakit siya 0? Kasi yun yung definition natin. Kapag isoelectric point 0 or net overall charge ng protein ay 0. So paano siya ano mangyayari sa kanya kapag nasa pH 7? Ang tendency ay maging negatively charged. Yun yung sequence natin kanina, di ba? Na from completely charged or fully protonated form, okay? Starting sa pH na mababa or acidic pH, as you increase the pH, magiging negatively charged. Okay, kapag fully deprotonated na. So, as you increase the pH, magiging deprotonated technically yung overall or magiging negative na yung overall charge ng ovalbumin, halimbawa. Paano naman sa lysozyme? Ang isoelectric point ng lysozyme ay 11.0. So, kung 11.0 ang isoelectric point, so 0, so any pH before 11, any value before 11, yung lysozyme, we should expect it to be positively charged. Okay? So, since 7 is before 11, pag binibilang natin, okay, mas mababang pH ang 7. So you should expect lysozyme to be positively charged. Okay? Now, going back to our question, between the two, which will be eluted first? So syempre, kung an ion exchange column, ang ma-elute muna ay yung hindi nakatrap, hindi na-trap ng column natin. Ano ba yung na-trap ng column natin? Yung anionic or yung negatively charged, which is the ovalbumin. Since na-trap yung ovalbumin, unang makakalabas ang lysozyme. Therefore, the answer will be lysozyme. Okay? Baka inaantok na kayo or something. Okay, so ang sagot dito ay lysozyme. Hindi ko pala nalagay yung answer key dito. Tama pa, lysozyme, positively charged. Nag-agree ba lahat na sagot ay lysozyme, letter A? Okay, good. Thank you sa reactions. Nakuha na lahat? So again, matatrap mo yung negatively charged na ovalbumin kasi nga above isoelectric point na yung 7. So you should expect na ang ovalbumin ay negative na. So matatrap siya. So syempre, mauna makalabas ang lysozyme. Okay? Ito, isa pa. Which of the following techniques for protein purification or separation can be made specific for a given protein? Last question na to, kasi 9 PM na pala. Okay, which of the following techniques for protein purification can be made specific for a given protein? A. Gel filtration chromatography, B. Ion exchange chromatography, C. Electrophoresis, or D. Affinity chromatography? Sige nga, sagot nga sa chat. Sa chat kung ano sa tingin niyo tama sagot. Pwede niyong i-type sa chat. Okay, so isa lang nagsagot. Si Walter lang. Okay, thank you for the answer. So very good. Nasagot natin yung letter D, affinity chromatography. Okay? Kasi discuss natin kasi yung specificity ng ligand binding or yung proteins na pwede mag-bind dun sa ligands na pwede nating specific. Kasi halimbawa, yung protein ay specifically nagbabind lang sa ATP. So pwedeng i-modify mo yung ligand na katulad ng ATP. So yung protein na tatargetin mo, pwede mong ma-isolate yun. The rest hindi nakakabit dun sa ligand na yun. Kaya magiging specific kumbaga yung affinity chromatography. Sabi nga natin kanina, highly selective siya. Okay? So it's since it's 9 p.m. sakto naman, nahabol ko naman na makover yung dapat ma-discuss. So this will be the end of the lecture. So thank you everyone for listening. Hopefully makita ko rin kayo, ma-meet ko kayo soon na kapag naka-register na kayo sa sa URC. And so hopefully may naiambag ako para ma-review kayo sa biochem. So usually yan din yung mga tinatanong din. At yung proteins, kung doon nagkakamali, it comprises majority, or hindi mo majority, parang medyo malaking part ng biochem na based sa TOS ng biochem exam. Ayun lang. So if may questions kayo, and
Sir, may question po dito sa ating chat box.
yes po.
Provided daw po ba yung drawings ng molecular structures sa board exams, or mostly pangalan lang, or you need to figure out the molecular structures?
Okay po. Na-address din po yata natin yan kanina. Although I can just repeat din po na commonly sa biochem hindi. Kadalasan. Minsan lang siguro mag-provide, pero yung sa amin nun, walang pre-provide na structure. Parang sa amino acid, dapat talaga nasa sa ulo mo siya para maging confident ka na baka mamaya hindi pala lumabas na may structure. And so as long as kabisado niyo yung structure, hindi na yung problema. So madali lang naman, kaya naman yan sa uluhin. Parang try nyo na lang din, ang ginagawa ng iba, parang may chart, parang nagagawa sila ng pinopost nila sa dingding, ganyan. So araw-araw nila nakikita yung mga structure. So madaling natatandaan yung amino acids. Yung iba naman, araw-araw din na drawing yung amino acids. So natatandaan talaga nila. Ayan. So that's just one tip din sa pag-aaral ng bio.
Ayun. Thank you, sir. Thank you, guys, sa pag-stay. Grabe, no? So yes, and hopefully magkita-kita ulit tayo sa mga susunod na sessions, and expect that you'll receive an email. So you'll have the front seat since you'll be part of the Google Meet, and we'll also have a live stream on Facebook, and you can also invite your friends. And yun, sana this May tayo pa rin magkikita sa finals, ano? Hopefully you'll register and like our page. So Upstep Review Center, search nyo lang po sa Facebook, like and follow para updated po tayo sa mga free reviews, orientation, and yung ating actual review for CHLE. So thank you, and yes, thank you Sir Cesar for this very grabe informative and grabe napaka malamang lecture about biochemistry. Talagang kahit ako, hindi ako chem, na-appreciate ko talaga na, ay, ganun pala yun. So, syempre, yung students natin, ganun din. And yes, I'll let you be. Thank you so much again. It's already 9 p.m. So, yun. I believe sa mga nagpa-prepare for their board exam, it's also vital for you to rest. So I pray that you will have a complete rest, and kahit mainit, mag-electric fan na lang, or sa mga aircon friends natin dyan, go. Deserve yan. So thank you and good night. So this has been Ange, your program lead from Upstep Review Center. Thank you. Bye.